Hi, I'm Bill Corcoran Jr. This is the On the Stacks podcast.
Oh yeah, whoa, look, they can never keep me down, I'm going, and if I ever fail, just know I'll go again. I never quit, cause I know that every loss may lead to another win. I'm going up.
Today's guest is Jim Olecki, founder of J2O Enterprises, J2O Advisors, and CEO of the Ritz Theater and Performing Arts Center in Scranton. After 20-plus years of working as a professional fixer with high-profile clients all throughout the world, Jim moved back to his hometown in Northeastern Pennsylvania with a mission to give back to the community that raised him. In this episode, we talk about balancing career ambitions and relationships, and how the creative arts are a fundamental foundation in teaching children how to process and express their emotions, build self-esteem, and learn effective communication and leadership skills. This episode would not be possible without the support of our sponsors, so please check them out in the show notes. I'm your host, Bill Corcoran Jr., and this is Jim Olecki on the Stacks.
Corporations were sending planes for me in Disney when I was with my family to take me out, to take me someplace, to fix a problem, to bring me back. That gets you a lot of accolades. That gets you a lot of recognition. That fast tracks your career. What you learn later in life, though, is what did you lose by doing that? Again, life learnings. You get caught up in working with well-known people that you think are cool and you think are heroes, but they're not. You find out later in life who the real heroes are. And no matter what happens in your career, how successful you become, how much money you make, your family and the folks that were the foundation when you were being brought up and being raised are the people that really matter at the end of the day.
This episode is brought to you by Burn, the fitness company behind the Today Show approved Burn board. If I'm being honest, working out can be a real chore, especially as a new dad in desperate need of sleep and cardio. Burn is founded by NEPA native Jimmy T. Martin, and his Burn board offers a low-impact core and cardio experience unlike anything I've done before. They have hundreds of on-demand workouts that are great for beginners, seasoned athletes, and out-of-shape podcast hosts who love supporting small businesses. My wife and I use it pretty frequently throughout the week, and it's honestly a great way to burn a ton of calories without burning a ton of cash. Not to mention, it's a great tool for skiers, runners, wrestlers, and hockey players. Jimmy is offering all On the Stacks listeners 15% off when they use the code STACKS15. Visit theburn.com today to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15 at checkout. Again, that's theburn, THEBRRN.com to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15. It's time to get on board today with Burn. This episode is brought to you by Kavanaugh's Grill, one of my favorite places to eat and drink in NEPA. They've got one of the best outdoor patios with 13 TVs and over 20 beers on tap. You can also dine inside at this cozy Irish-style pub where your beer never goes empty. Did I mention how delicious their food is? Their in-house smoked brisket, barbecue ribs, and wings are to die for. So grab your friends and have a drink on me at Kavanaugh's. Mention code STACKS for one free draft beer with purchase of any entree when you dine in. Located at 163 North Main Street in Mountaintop, Kavanaugh's is open at 4 p.m. during the week and 12 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday during football season. Dine in today at Mountaintop's only Irish-style pub.
Hey Northeast PA, Paul Perfect Storm here. Do you want your kitchen or bathroom to go from this to this? Well, Perfect Storm can do it.
Need a kitchen or bath remodel and don't know who the experts are? Perfect Storm Renovations. Expert designers and installers who can help you achieve the kitchen or bathroom of your dreams. Schedule your free in-home design today. Perfect Storm Renovations. High-end quality anyone can afford.
What's up, podcast? It's Bill Corcoran Jr. here in the Blue Door Studio, protected by our friends at Ritchie Security Solutions. Jim Olecki, welcome to the On the Stacks podcast.
Hey, Bill, thanks, man. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, dude. You showed up looking very dapper, by the way. I mean, I'm impressed.
It's a calling card.
Yeah?
Yeah.
This is the look. You got the wingtip shoes. I appreciate. Like, I was just telling you right before we came on. Like, I'm a huge wingtip guy, even though a lot more lately I'm wearing sneakers, but I'm a wingtip fan.
You know, I have a tailor in New York City who always said you can never be too overdressed.
I 100% agree.
Underdressed.
Yeah, I feel a little underdressed today.
Yeah.
But I used to abide by that same mindset of everywhere I went. You know, I always said, like, I live by the same thing, like, you know, dress nice and look nice.
Dress for success.
That's what they say.
That's
right?
what they say.
So you did today. You showed up.
There you go.
You know, looking super dapper. So I appreciate that.
OnTheStacks is a big deal, man.
We gotta do it right.
That's right.
You know, so you just came back to the area from New York City. You're a small town guy, right? Yep. And you know, from the Scranton area in Pennsylvania. You're in New York City for a long time. You've done a lot of really cool things. You're still doing really cool things, but you just moved back to the area, and we'll get into that in a little bit too. But you know, I wanna kind of take it back to the old dirt road that you grew up on, right? Because you're a really small town. I mean, like very small.
Yeah,
right?
Very small. About 150 people. In
Where?
Hot Bottom, Pennsylvania.
Hot Bottom.
And the dirt road that you speak of is Sheepy Hollow Road.
Sheepy?
Sheepy.
Not sleepy.
Sheepy.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So there's a sheep farm at the beginning of the road that actually held during its day the Pennsylvania State Sheepdog Trials, and you know that's where it got its name.
Very interesting. Wow. Sheep.
Yeah.
Sheep. So very, very small town.
Very small town.
Yeah. What was it like? What was it like for you as a kid growing up?
You know, I've never been a video game guy or one of the children that sits in the house, and you know, so it was always, you know, you kind of had to do a lot of outdoor activities. I was a big basketball player. My parents built a basketball court, so was out there quite a bit. Fishing, hunting, all of those things. You know, the downside was you couldn't really ride your bike to friend's house because it'd be miles and miles uphill both ways.
Right. Yeah. In 2 feet of snow.
And 2 feet of snow, bare feet, the whole thing. Yeah. But no, it was a great place. You know, I think at the time, you know, perhaps it drove me a little crazy, but now I've come to appreciate it, and you know, especially the foundation that's there, and the folks that live in those small towns are really the rocks in your life that you realize, you know, further on down the road, and you know how often they're there and how often they check in on you and things like that.
Yeah. So, all right. So I want to go back. You mentioned basketball. You
Sure.
came in here today, and by the way, Jim and I have spoken numerous times on the phone, but I did not know you were 6'4". We had to adjust everything for the height today, and just fit you in the frame, right?
Right.
You walked in. I'm like, boy, geez, you're tall. So basketball. Did you play basketball a lot?
I did.
You got to use the height to your advantage.
Yeah,
right?
you know, again, when you're in a small town, sort of, you're always looking for activities to do. And my father had me in sports right out of kindergarten, actually. And I wrestled, and I played basketball and baseball and all of it. And then those two sports, wrestling and basketball, started interfering, or intersecting rather, when you get into high school. And at Mountain View, that's the school that I went to, high school, there's no middle school, so it's 7 through 12. You know, basketball, I was a much better basketball player than wrestler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
When you're tall and lanky, that doesn't really make for a good wrestler.
Yeah. So you played all throughout high school?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Were you like super competitive?
I've always been super competitive. That doesn't translate to being good.
Okay. That's okay, though.
But no, you know, we actually won our district championship when I was a junior. You know, we were pretty good. But up there, again, you have a handful of guys that play every sport, and it's just about being with your friends and doing something after school rather than going home and being isolated. You know, you want to hang out with your friends, and really, it's more about that bonding experience than it is the particular sport. So we were very good at soccer. We weren't big enough for a football team, and started out playing soccer to get in shape for basketball, and we ended up being a very good soccer team. Further on down the road, Mountain View actually won the state championship for soccer. We've developed a very good program. And then, you know, basketball, and then golf in the spring.
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, like everybody basically had to play every sport, right?
That's right.
To
That's
cover,
right. So you had you know, pretty much farm guys that were very good athletes, and you know, just all around, they weren't really good at one particular sport. We just played everything, and you know, we could compete.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I'm going to kind of maybe fast forward a little bit here. We can backtrack if we need to, but, you know, you going from this really small town that you grew up in, you you ended up going on to New York City and you spent a ton of time, a big part of your life in New York City. What was that experience like going from, small town, Sheep Road to New York City?
I'm not sure what it was, Bill, to be honest with you. I was never, I didn't leave home very much. My parents took me to wrestling camp and things like that, and I always had a hard time being away from home. Didn't spend a lot of nights at friends' houses because I didn't like being away from home. I was a very shy kid growing up. But we took a field trip in 11th grade, juniors, and we went to New York City, and I'd never seen anything like that before. Never saw, this is the early 90s now, and I'd never seen buildings like that. Never saw graffiti. Never saw, unfortunate, less privileged people on the streets.
So was it kind of like sort of shocking, but also like you were
shocking, but so intriguing, and I was
curious.
Just like, wow, that's where I want to be. I went to Brooklyn Elementary, Brooklyn, Pennsylvania Elementary, and had about 10 kids in my class, and but I would show up to first grade. I kind of modeled myself after my father, who was a very well-dressed man during.
So is that where you get this from?
It is. I will say that. But I would go to first grade in a clip-on tie and a camel hair coat, and everybody else is in t-shirts and flannels and things, yep. And that just stayed with me throughout. It was something that was in the back of my mind somewhere that I wanted to be in a big city. But that switch, just clicked, and I went for it right out of school, and made that transition. Even though I was a shy kid, even though I was, not afraid, but just didn't prefer staying at friends' houses. I went, and then one day it happened.
Yeah. It just clicked for you. It just worked, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So you go to New York City, and like was it like the curiosity of like, hey, what's this big city all about? Like, is that what kind of got you venturing?
Yeah. It was the exposure of things that I hadn't seen before. It was the curiosity, the intrigue of the big buildings, the different types of people that you would run. Where I grew up, it was pretty straightforward. There wasn't a lot of diversity. There wasn't a lot of it was pretty much
pretty cut and dry.
Pretty cut and dry. And that was so interesting to me to see in New York City and see different people and experience different things. And there's just a buzz, and that buzz becomes addicting.
It is.
I can remember, wherever I would fly, and I've traveled all over the world. I've been very fortunate to do that. When I would fly back into New York City and we'd be circling Manhattan to go into LaGuardia or JFK, I would get goosebumps. And it didn't matter what other city I was coming from. New York was always sort of a home and had an adrenaline to it, and made you want to get up in the morning and compete, and made you want to, do the best you could or go as hard as you could during the day. And that was something that drove me for nearly 25 years.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how you go from this small town to you just said it, and I'm curious like how many different countries you've been around the world, because you said you've been so fortunate enough to be able to travel, and then you're flying back into JFK, but how where have you been? How many different places have you been?
Oh, I don't know that I could count, but all through Western and Eastern Europe, Asia. I spent 6 months in Tokyo, Japan, for the Coca-Cola Company. Australia. The only place that I haven't probably had extensive time in is South America. But Europe, as I said, Asia, and even the Middle East, I've spent a lot of time in and seen some of the most beautiful cities you could imagine. But again, nothing beat New York.
Yeah, you literally got a world of experience.
Oh yeah.
And I just think the irony of it is just, it's funny because you went from the small town that you went to, and you've probably been more places than almost anyone I can even think of.
I have. I've been very fortunate, and a lot of doors seemed to open up for me, and I think a lot of that was driven by my internal drive. You know, I had a teacher, his name is Chris Lake, at Mountain View, and you know, when I was debating what I was going to do in school, he said, do you want to be a big fish in a little pond or a little fish in a big pond? And I said I wanted to be a big fish in a big pond. And that sort of, you know, mindset is what drove me to achieve what I could in New York City, and to prove people wrong, that people in this area, particularly Hot Bottom, you know, can make it, can do it, if they just put their mind to it. Now, with that comes some sacrifice, right? You know, if you're working harder than everybody else, well, friends, family, those things are going to go by the wayside. And I've learned that later in life, and, you know, it's not without regret. But I had a chip on my shoulder for a long time to show and inspire and motivate people, particularly, again, in the Mountain View School District in Northeastern Pennsylvania, that, you know, this isn't an area that's got a defeatist, you know, mentality. It's, you can do it if you want to do it, and if you just work hard and put your mind to it and chase it, doors will open for you. And, you know, I think that's the great thing about New York is, you know, things happen very quickly there, and you never know who you're sitting next to on a plane or in a restaurant, or, you know, I can tell you numerous stories about people that I've introduced myself to that are sitting next to me that, you know, are, you know, insanely important, or celebrity, or whatever it may be. Yeah.
So while we're kind of on that topic, so what brought you to all these experiences, all this travel? Like what were you doing?
So, you know, I, for lack of a better word, was a fixer for celebrities, politicians, high profile individuals, you know, very influential people, corporate executives, where, you know, you're maintaining or preserving or defending their corporate reputation, their personal reputation, their personal brands, and sort of making problems go away. And that is sort of, you know, I fell into that, I'll be honest with you. I went to New York City thinking that I was going to be Gordon Gekko sitting in the back of a limo with a giant cell phone.
Was this the dream?
That was the dream.
That was the dream.
That was the dream. So
yeah, the big blocky phone.
Yeah,
right?
And I thought investment banking was for me. I hated it. It lasted about a year.
So you tried it.
I tried it. And, you know, the whole New York experience was really insane. And I feel like I want to share it because, you know, coming from a town like Hot Bottom, it was, you know, very difficult, right? People don't know Northeastern Pennsylvania and New York, right? And it's looked, you know, probably frowned upon. And it's something that I had to work very hard at. I probably, you know, I had a cover letter and a resume that I was sending out to Goldman Sachs and Credit Suisse and UBS and all of these things, and they never.
And like, who the hell's this guy?
Unless you're at it, you know, I went to Marywood University in Scranton, and you know, unless you are a you know, at an Ivy League school, you know, you don't get a first look. Yeah. And the title, you know, the beginning line of my cover letter was, you know, you may not know me or where I come from, but let me tell you what I can do for you. And it just, I've sent out probably hundreds of those letters and resumes, but all it took was one. And, you know, I can remember we got a call, and it, you know, we started putting the pieces of the puzzle together on how I would get there. You got to understand, this is pretty much before cell phones. I'm dating myself a little bit, but
it's all right.
And,
the Gordon
you know,
Gekko cell phone.
Yeah, and I drove a pickup truck at the time, and I, you know, didn't have really my own bank accounts and stuff. Still living with my folks, going to college. And we had to figure out a way for me to be in, you know, this company called and said, we'd love to talk to you. And I had to figure out how to get to New York that next day, having never been there except on a field trip in a school bus.
No, it's off to the races.
That's
here.
right. So you know, I took one of our cars, and, you know, my parents booked me a hotel room outside the Lincoln Tunnel, and I navigated my way there. And I was so nervous about traffic the next day that I woke up at like 4 in the morning. But the problem was I zipped into the city, and then I got no place to go. There was no traffic that early.
At least you made it.
At least I made it. And I went to the place of the interview, and it was probably 7:30, and I sat there for about an hour and a half. And then the first person came and said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, I'm here for an interview. They're like, people don't get in until like 9:30, and I was there at 7:30. But I did well in the interview, and at the time I had a cousin who lived in the city, and his office happened to be next door. So I went there, and he said, "How do you think you did?" And I said, "I think it went well." He said, "Here we go." And he gave me the New York Times and said, "Start looking at apartments and calling brokers. And, you want to live in this section of the city," which tended to be the Upper East Side. And I went and looked at a bunch of apartments. I was shocked at what I was looking at for how much they were. Some with toilets in the middle of the living rooms. But I found one. And then I came back to him, and he said, "Okay, go see this person over here at AT&T and get yourself a cell phone." And then he said, "Go to Citibank across the street and open up a checking account." And then the last stop in the day was Allen Edmonds for Park Avenue loafers. And I couldn't believe how much those shoes were. I said, "You got to be out of your mind to pay that." But in one day, my dream of going to New York was done.
100 resumes later.
More than 100.
More than 100.
Yeah.
Wow. So I find it so interesting. I love you mentioned, you said you had a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
I love people that have that mentality, that mindset, and just that underdog. Right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you were like an underdog coming from Hot Bottom, Pennsylvania?
I did, and that athlete in me made me very competitive, as I said. And the more that people told me I couldn't do it, the more that I wanted to do it. And my father, God love him to death, and he was born and raised in Hot Bottom, and he lost his father very, very young, and put himself through college and developed a very nice life for himself, my mother, and our family. And but he never left the area, and he doesn't understand New York, which is fine. And he didn't think that New York was for people like us. Like, New York people from New York come and buy up our land, and and are rude and ignorant, and that sort of just drove me to want to prove him wrong, and while earning his respect at the same time.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I love it. And you did it.
I did it.
You did it. You were very successful at it.
I was.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah. So I mean, what else was it, throughout your career that you had a great career, and just having that chip on your shoulder, and just that constant, like, trying to prove people wrong mindset, like, yeah. I mean, it obviously got you pretty far.
It did. I am now 45. I'll be 46 April 1st. And what you learn later in life, though, is what did you lose by doing that? And I think, I'm sure we'll get to it later on, but part of what I want to say is, follow your dreams and chase that dream. But, just be careful of losing yourself along the way. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I learned. That chip was so intense that, I would steamroll everybody, and, work harder than everybody. And I never left before the last person was gone. And, I just was always there. That gets you a lot of accolades. That gets you a lot of recognition. That fast tracks your career. But in the meantime, I was, corporations were sending planes for me in Disney when I was with my family, to take me out, to take me someplace, to fix a problem, to bring me back. My family has always enjoyed going to the shore together, and I'd be tied to the dining room table while they're all at the ocean or on the boardwalk or at the pool. And I had to do it because nobody could do it better than me. At least that was my mindset. And, again, that's some of that is with regret, because you miss out on memories, you miss out on fun times with your family. And no matter what happens in your career, how successful you become, how much money you make, your family and the folks that were the foundation when you were being brought up and being raised, are the people that really matter at the end of the day. You know, working with celebrities is cool, but they pat you on the back and say thanks, and that's it. And you know, what I found was myself saying, this is thankless. This is not who I want to be.
So did you feel that it was basically just transactional?
Yeah, it's definitely transactional. When you're somebody that comes in and says, you go to sleep tonight and I'll figure it out and I'll stay up all night, and when you wake up in the morning, it'll be all over. You know, it's definitely transactional, because that's just a means to an end or a Band-Aid until they need you again. And there's never really, they're not your friends. They're not your family. They could never be your family, even as hard as, you know, I wanted to be. I like to surround myself with the people that I work with and think that they're my family, excuse me, because we spend a lot of time together. But they really, you know, the hard lesson was, do they really care about you? Are they going to be there? But I tell you who will be there are the people that, you know, my father goes to the diner with the same group of 5 guys every morning, 7 days a week, 6 o'clock in the morning. And those are the guys that'll be there.
Yeah.
You know, my father taught me a lesson, probably one of the most memorable things he's ever taught me. He was the head of respiratory therapy at Tyler Memorial Hospital. And he said, you know, he had lunch every day, you know, so he was the equivalent of doctors and everybody else that were working there. But he had lunch with the maintenance men every day. And he said to me, you know, I asked him one time why, and he said to me, because those are the people that'll be there when you need them. And those are the people that will give you, you know, return favors and those types of things. And that stuck with me. And I think that foundation and that value stayed with me and enabled me to be an effective fixer. And, you know, really, because I knew how to relate to people, how to get people, how to talk to people of various backgrounds and social statuses and things like that. You really learn how to communicate with them and understand them and approach it from a different angle, not just be, you know, the asshole that's coming in to make them do what you want them to do. So I attribute a lot of my success to my parents and in particular my father.
Wow, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it? You feel like it's you know, this you're able to just relate through empathy?
Yeah. You know, an example. I worked for a private equity firm during the financial crisis, and you know, one of the most awakening things that I had to do in my career early on was this private equity firm had a paper mill that was not profitable. They owned a paper company. There was one particular mill in Appleton, Wisconsin that was not profitable. Shut it down. Well, like P&G in Northeastern Pennsylvania, it devastated the town, right? 3,000 people laid off. And, you know, all of these families are destroyed because they don't have jobs. And there's not a plethora of jobs in this region. That was sort of the way of life, is to work for this paper mill. So while it made good business sense, it devastated the town. So they sent me to sit with the union and sit across from the union. And I had, you know, the mayor of the town on one side, a reporter on the other side, and then I sat across from 6 union members. And I had to explain to them why it made business sense to shut this down and convince them not to come to New York and protest out in front of this investment bank. And, you know, that was a tough thing to do because it was relatable for me, and it touched, you know, the inner core of me because I came from a small town. However, you know, you had a job to do, and I think the only way that I got out of that room without getting hit was being able to relate to them and bring it down a level and talk to them rationally and make them understand. And I think that has been a good foundation for me, you know, as I move through my career. Communication and strategic communication. If I could teach, you know, 10 kids in the area about what, you know, everybody's learning about what they want to do when they go to college. You know, if you get a foundation in communication and you can talk to people and relate to people and think about what you're saying, that is probably the most valuable or invaluable trait that you can develop.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, because
Sure.
you know, it's just it's so fascinating to me, and you know what I'm doing, what we're doing right here, you know, right now, like this, my platform, this podcast, you know, this media company, right? This is communication, right? Like what we're doing right now, this is communication. You know, you and I connected. By the way, shout out to Chris Bohinski from PA Live.
Yes.
First of all, for introducing Jim and I. So thank you, Chris. We know he's watching. He better be watching anyway. But yeah, no, like it's so fascinating to me, and I'd love for you to you know, touch on it a little bit more, because you know the communication factor. I think, you know, especially nowadays with technology, a lot of that is lost, I think, in translation. Yes. Right. Yes. As communication has, or as technology has advanced. I'm a huge fan of technology. I love technology, social media, etc. This whole company exists because of social media.
Sure.
But let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about those communication skills and how and why you think it's so valuable.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't really matter what you do for a profession. You have to know how to communicate with people. Whether you're a leader, whether you're an employee talking to a leader, you have to know how to effectively communicate. You have to know how to write. You have to know, these are core things that will make you successful no matter what you do. And it doesn't matter what profession. It's just a fundamental foundation to leadership, is communicating and being able to read the room, read the person you're talking to, understand your audience, and really reach them and be able to touch them. And that's something that, you know, I've been fortunate enough to hone in, or at least I think I have.
How did you learn that?
You know, again, I'm not sure that there was an exact moment. I've always had a passion for working with kids. I wrote a children's book, illustrated a children's book, you know, and
when did you do that?
When I was in college.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, I ran the Dixon City Civic Center for a couple of years while I was going to college. And, you know, just there wasn't a point where I really sat down and said, you know, there's a course in communications. It doesn't work that way. I think I attribute it to, you know, the values and the foundation that came out of growing up in a small town and being shy and learning how to step out of my comfort zone, and also watching others. You know, my father's a very good communicator, so is my mother. Different ways. My mother's probably a little more aggressive, but you know, they both know how to communicate and you know, get what you want. You see sort of rewards when you effectively communicate with something. You tend to get, everybody thinks a fixer is a guy that goes in and, you know, twists somebody's arm until they give in, but it's really about communicating and just understanding who you're trying to reach, understanding, having an objective, having a goal, and just knowing how to approach it and get there. So I'm not sure that there was really a reason or a point in time where, you know, I learned that. It was just honing skills through the years of, hey, this works, and just continuing to hone it and hone it and hone it. Yeah,
I just think that's so interesting, because, you know, like, you know, again, it dates all the way back to the book.
It
does. You know, like, I mean, you brought that up and told that as part of the story, and I think, you know, I think for you, you've always wanted to communicate in some way.
I did. But you know, my problem was I didn't have a lot of self-esteem when I was little, and you know, I was always afraid of making a mistake. When you have low self-esteem, you're trying to be perfect, and the more you try to be perfect, the more mistakes you make. And I was definitely afraid of making mistakes. I had trouble, Bill, ordering, you know, food from a waitress, because I was afraid that I would make a mistake and she would laugh at me. And that's a terrible thing, you know, for a kid. But, you know, what it does is teaches you to again, hone in on what you're saying and think about what you're saying in a very purposeful manner. And, you know, that really carried with me through my career.
Yeah, I love it. That's it's so cool, because, you know, I think, you know, same thing. A lot of times I feel like most people don't want to try new things.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they may not have a conversation, like like an in-depth conversation, something like this, because people are just afraid to have like real conversations.
Sure.
You know, and I think it's such a struggle for some people.
Well, you touched on it. I think, technology, meaning iPads and phones and social media, as well as the pandemic, have destroyed communication, self-confidence, and socialization. And, you know, not to put the cart before the horse, but, you know, part of why I'm back is to get children to re-socialize again. You know, I look at some of the kids that we have at the theater and, you know, all around me, friends' kids, and, you know, they don't know how to communicate. They don't know, because they were pulled out of their social environment for a couple of years, and now, you know, they're on their phones, and what you say on a phone through social media or on an iPad through social media, you would never say in person. So that opens up doors, you know, for bullying and being, you know, mean, and it also opens up the door for loneliness, because, you know, you're just staring at a phone and you have nobody to talk to. So part of my mission with coming back is really to bring children in particular back together and get them socializing again, so that you can develop that communication line and really, you know, help each other with whatever their situations are and how to process those situations.
Yeah, so I guess that's a good segue then.
Sure.
So you know, what brought you back to Northeastern Pennsylvania? On the Stacks will be back in a flash after a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Elevation Wellness, NEPA's premier wellness center located on Mundy Street in Wilkes-Barre. From pro athletes to busy parents, Elevation Wellness is leading the conversation when it comes to bettering your health through integrative medicine. Founded by NEPA native Louis Helmecke, Elevation Wellness offers physician-formulated and guided treatments that are administered by registered nurses. To learn more about how you can experience the benefits of IV vitamin therapy, multivitamin booster shots, non-invasive aesthetics, or peptide, NAD, red light, and compression therapy, visit elevation-wellness.com or follow them on Instagram at Elevation Wellness NEPA. All On The Stacks listeners will receive 10% off their first purchase with code STACKS at checkout. Call 570-762-9400 or visit elevation-wellness.com to book your appointment today. Elevation Wellness, taking your health to new heights. Welcome to the future. While you're hearing this ad in the present, the Center for Technology Innovation at Lackawanna College is preparing students for the jobs of tomorrow in the world of advanced technology. The Center for Technology Innovation will offer undergraduate degree programs, corporate training, as well as short-term stackable certificates in areas such as robotics, cybersecurity, electric vehicles, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence. Based at a 90,000 square foot facility in downtown Scranton, Pennsylvania, the Center for Technology Innovation is located 2 hours from the major cities of New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia, and is just 15 minutes from a commercial airport in a region thriving with tourist attractions and a vibrant restaurant, educational, and cultural scene. Lackawanna College is a proven industry-leading innovator. But don't just take my word for it. Fast Company even recognized Lackawanna College's reputation for innovation by naming them to their top 10 list as one of the world's most innovative companies. For more information or to enroll, call 877-346-3552 or visit lackawanna.edu.
So oftentimes we get clients who call us or are sitting in our conference room and they've been hurt on somebody's property and want to know if they have a case. If you have a right to be on somebody's property, then you may have a case. At the very least, a property owner owes to you is that if they knew of a danger, they have to remedy that danger to prevent a risk of injury to you.
To learn more, visit Anzalone Law offices online at anzalonelaw.com. And now we're back on the Stacks. What brought you back to Northeastern Pennsylvania?
Well, again, I think priorities shift in life. I've always had a passion, as I mentioned earlier, for working with children. I believe children are so pure and, so moldable, if you will, that the earlier you get to them. And this world these days with news, and I'm someone that's worked quite extensively with the media, negative news sells, unfortunately. And so it's just constant negativity, in the news and in the newspapers, and, because that controversy sells. And if you're a young person and you're looking at this, it sort of destroys hope of what is happening. You know, the world is a terrible place, and it's not. And things aren't as negative as the media portrays it. It's just sort of what is going to get the most clicks or what's going to sell. So, you know, realizing this and looking at what's happened over the last couple of years with the pandemic, and again, that socialization, I felt the need to come back and do something, as well as being self-conflicted with, you know, I was tired of the city life. I met a wonderful woman who's my wife now, and you know, wanted to spend more time with her and not be out of pocket as much, and have a normal quote unquote life where I'm not on call 24/7 and, you know, getting called out of the house in the middle of the night to solve a problem. So all of those factors led to me wanting to come back home, wanting to make an impact, wanting to help, and while also being surrounded by family and friends who, at the end of the day, are the rocks that make or break you.
They're the people that make the difference, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I want to kind of go back, because earlier on you said something about, you know, sort of like towing that line, like you were so driven, but you may have maybe neglected some relationships, and, you know, something that you may regret that some of those things, right, in life. And how does somebody like a young ambitious person, like, you know, take me back to 22-year-old you, how's a young ambitious person like that sort of toe that line, and so that they don't have those regrets later in life?
You know, that's a hard one to answer, because you need to have a certain drive when you're 20-something years old. The world is very competitive, especially in a place like New York City. So you need a certain tough skin to really go do it and chase it. I'm not sure that there's a perfect formula for how to toe that line. You might have to sacrifice it for a little while, and I think everybody does. Look at entrepreneurs, and, you know, they'll all tell you that, you know, there are sacrifices to be made along the way. What the bigger lesson is there's always a point where you're going to come back, right? Whether your world collapses, your business collapses, you know, something happens in your life, there is typically a turning point where your brain says, okay, it's time to readjust priorities. And that's what happened with me. And, you know, I have never been happier. And I'm really excited about what's happening in Northeastern Pennsylvania. I think, you know, after the pandemic, there's been a big exodus out of the cities, the major cities, that is. I think Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, and Northeastern Pennsylvania is ideally situated where, you know, what I call a collar city, where, you know, you're 2 hours from New York, 2 hours from Philly, 4 hours from Boston. You can still commute to those in any given day and be in there for a meeting, but it's economically feasible. And, you know, a lot of the bigger profile folks or corporations are moving out to cities like Scranton or Wilkes-Barre. So I think there's a renaissance happening in this area, and, you know, it's really leading the way in healthcare and tech. And, you know, it's really going to benefit from what the new norm is in terms of working from home, working remotely, but still having access to those major hubs that you can get to in 2 hours.
Yeah, let's talk about the Ritz Theater for a little bit.
Sure.
What's going on there?
So I came back. Mike and Sherry Melcher have done a tremendous job over the last 7 years of running a theater and bringing a 115-year-old theater back to life. It was built by an Italian immigrant, Sylvester Poli, in the early 1900s, 1907, so it's 115 years old. And, you know, at the time, he was the largest theater owner in the world. I think he had 38 theaters. This is the only one still operable.
Wow.
And, you know, that's really attributed to Mike and Sherry. They have developed a program there where we have 400 kids. It's called CAPA, the Creative and Performing Arts Academy. And they run a program. There's a summer camp session all through the summer, and then we put on various shows throughout the year. And it's something that again, is very near and dear to my heart, something that I was supporting for a while, but we're trying to take it to the next level. And they asked me if I would come in and help them run the business side of it and expand. So that's what we're working on. It's really rewarding. The arts, again, are another fundamental foundation to leadership. If you can talk and act and sing and dance in front of an audience, then you're going to be able to, stand up in front of a town hall or stand up in front of employees or lead, some sort of fireside chat and not have any fears. And, that's really important to me.
Did you do theater as a kid?
I did not. This is new to me.
Okay.
The business side, I leave the theater part to Mike and Sherry. The business side is more my sweet spot.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, just because, you're very passionate about communication, and obviously communication is communication is extremely important, in theater. And like you said, you just said it yourself, but being able to get up on stage and perform and communicate to the audience.
That's right.
And I know for you, what you said as a kid, you struggled with some things,
I did.
with that.
You would have never gotten me on stage. And that's what we see. We do see a lot of shy children coming in.
I never would have got on stage either as a kid. I would occasionally, I was like the goofy kid, in class, right? If we were I just run around and be goofy, but I was never the kid that, could actually be part of theater or any type of performance. Same thing. I was shy, but not. I don't know how to explain it. It's a weird thing, right?
Yeah.
I would never have been part of theater, but at the same time, I would be the goof in front of the class, joking around with the buddies and the guy the class clown, I guess if you want to call it that, right?
Sure.
That's basically kind of like what I was. But at the same time, I feel like I probably sometimes wouldn't have had the confidence to get up there on stage.
There's something intimidating about an audience.
Oh, 100%.
Again, same thing, a different analogy with sports, right? I had no problem playing basketball in front of, a gym full of people. But as a younger kid, I probably would not have gotten on stage. It's more singled out. It's more, so I have a lot of respect for these children. And we do get some that are shy. But by the end of our programming and working with Mike and Sherry and the entire staff, they're singing their hearts out. And that's really cool. We like to say that we create memories for families and memorable moments, and that's something we're very prideful about. And we do really, really quality shows, and I love just seeing the kids come in every day. Some of them, Bill, you wouldn't believe it, 7 years old, they have business plans.
No way.
Oh yeah.
Get them in here, Jim.
Yeah, they'll lay out. They're going to be next on OnTheStacks.
Seriously.
They'll lay out their plans for what they think their career is going to be, and that's really impressive for young kids. So I like to see that energy. I like to see those kids every day and see the passion, while also teaching them a lot of core values that are going to carry with them throughout life and make them leaders at the end of the day.
Yeah, kind of going back to I was a sports guy, in high school too. I ran track and cross country. I was a runner, and then I also did martial arts.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I don't know if we told you this, but so we know Jimmy Martin, but Jimmy Martin's family has a karate studio, and I originally, when I first started karate, Jimmy's grandfather was my instructor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy world.
I know, right? So but just going back to the sports thing, one of my coaches said to me, and he said to me, very often as a kid, and not that I didn't fully understand this quote then, but obviously, I really understand a lot more now. And he said to me, to those that have been given much will be expected.
Sure.
And I think that's so powerful. And the reason I'm saying it is because I think of you, right? And you came from small town, you go to New York City, right? And you're very successful, right? And now you sort of have this thing where you're coming back to Scranton to give back.
Yes.
Right? And it's maybe people expect that of you, maybe they don't, but it kind of goes along with that mindset of hey, and you said it yourself, hey, I was very fortunate. Yep. Right? I've been very fortunate. I've been all over the world. I've done a lot of cool things, but now it's my time to give back to the community that raised me.
That's right. I think look, I look around, and there's a number of factors, as we talked about. It's not only the area and the stereotypical, I should say, mindset of, I'm from Northeastern PA, and this is where I'm going to be, and this is what I'm going to do for a living. I've been shocked through my career at how many people have sort of had that mindset, family included, my nieces and nephews. And so there's that part of it that, is on one side. Then you have the pandemic that really destroyed, again, socialization. And I feel like there's a real need to be, to have inspiration and motivation and hope. And I hope personally to be that motivation or that role model, or just inspire. I don't need accolades. I don't need to be a role model, but just someone who they look and say, wow, well, he did it. And maybe, even if it's just one person or one child that says, I want to do that, and they try to go get it. And it doesn't mean that you have to, or it doesn't mean that you need to work with famous people. It doesn't need to, you do whatever you want to do. Just try, go get it. And that's something that I hope to inspire in some of the younger generation.
Yeah, and I think, even with me, like with this show, like when I started the show 3 years ago, like I had no intention, I had no clue what I was doing, right? And didn't really have, it's just like, oh, we'll start this, it'll be fun, let's just see where it goes kind of thing, right? But the more that time has gone on, I've had, and again, I'm going back now, we've been doing this for 3 years, right? But I'm going back maybe like 2 years, probably actually 2.5 years ago. And I've had guests on and just regular, listeners that have never actually been on the show. But I've had more than one person tell me that they're like, hey, you changed my life. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And they're like, you don't realize what you're doing here. And I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what? They're like, and so many people have, said to me like, hey, I heard so-and-so guest, and I ended up quitting my job and going for this other job that I wanted because I heard through the story of the person that you just had on the show, and it gave me the courage to go do the same thing.
Sure.
And it's like, that's just so powerful.
It is.
And,
it is.
Yeah. And once I like sort of got a taste of that, then it's like, I need to do more of this. And so the momentum just built because, people are, again, listeners and even just previous guests, like after, some guests have come on here and they're like, man, Bill, like this was just a really cool experience. Like I just, the amount of feedback that I got from people, and plus people like to really share their stories, and that's so important. I know it's cliche, but everybody has a story,
Sure.
right? And I believe that. Like I really do believe that, and I think there's not enough platforms out there, to be able to give somebody the stage, right? I mean, you, I think, know better than anybody. You've been a behind the scenes guy for the last 25 years of your life, and now I'm putting you under this hot lamp here, spotlight, grilling you with all these tough questions. But I think it's so true though. People do have those stories that they want to share, and I think sometimes some people think that like, oh, it's not worthy.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that 100%, and that's part of what I'm trying to do. In 2014, Mountain View honored me with a Distinguished Alumni Award, and there was a number of us, but we had to go to a dinner and make a little speech about what you've done. I looked at that and said, most of the time, because I followed the Alumni Association, and my father's an alum, and he's involved, but I looked at that and said, well, most people invite their friends, family. My friends and family knew what I did, right, throughout my career, rather. How I approached it was going to the principal and saying, hey, I want to have 2 tables filled with kids from school. Those are the kids that I want to reach, and I want them to hear my story. My family and friends already know what I did, know who I've interacted with. But these kids, I said, I don't want to be involved in picking them out. You pick them out, send them. I'll pay for them to sit at the tables, but send them. And they did. And, just like you said, Bill, what was one of the most rewarding things was seeing their eyes when I was telling the story, and then having them come up to me at the end of the speech and say, wow, could I do that? Wow, would you mind if we talked a little bit about that, or could I contact you and just hear a little bit more? And that is one of the most rewarding things that have ever happened to me.
Yeah, I love that, and I have a very similar story. You know, a few months back, I had spoke to a group of underprivileged kids. Sure. You know, some that have been in and out of foster homes, right? Mm-hmm. And I got the opportunity to go in front of these kids and just kind of just talk about my experiences, you know, with the podcast, with my family business, and everything, and how everything's evolved, and just kind of just give them and just show them like these are opportunities, and these opportunities exist, and you know, I was just there to show these, you know, they were like teenagers, like young teens, just to be able to show them like, hey, like this is possible, you know, because like even a few years ago, I think people may have looked at this and be like, oh, that's not possible. You can't do that here. You can't turn that into a business. Like you can't make money from that. And it's like, well, actually, you could, and I am. Right. So, you know, and it's not to brag, but it's just to show these kids who, man, some of these kids, like they just don't know. Like they literally just don't know, Jim.
That's
like,
right. That's right. And what I feel good about, Bill, there's a number of us, and I'm going to say us, that are coming back to this region, right? You talk about Jimmy, you know, incredibly accomplished entrepreneur. You talk about the guys from Parlor that have started a root beer company, you know, in Northeastern PA. You talk about yourself. You talk about me. We're all coming back. And I think the more that they see people like us and see what we're trying to do and hear what we're trying to do. That's why we're sort of all talking on this podcast. This is a great platform. And I hope to get some of the younger folks to listen to this, not because it's about me. You know, they can listen to the one about Parlor. They can listen to Jimmy's, whatever it may be.
Exactly.
But there is a good core group of very successful people that are moving back to this area because they see the trends and they want to give back as well, and that's really again rewarding to me and something that's been very, very, very nice to see. Yeah,
you know, it's funny actually. I forgot like the part of the punchline to my story. Believe it or not, I'm like I can't even believe I forgot to say the end to the story. So the actual end to the story was I walk out of the room, you know, I leave, right? And, you know, there was kids changing classes. It was held on a college campus, and there was, you know, some, you know, people in the hallway, whatever. And, you know, I opened my, you know, a couple kids came up to me after the class, and, you know, I were just interested and just asked. I said, hey, if anyone has any questions and wants to come up, talk to me, like I'll hang out for a few minutes. Sure. Or, like I had the time, right? So I was like, and I love that. Like I'll literally talk to anyone, like, especially if it's about like cool shit like this. Like, come talk to me. I'll literally. Like, Jim, I'll keep you here all night, by the way, you know. But yeah, so a couple kids came up to me and talked to me, right? And then, you know, all good. They walk out, see you, bye. I gave some of them hats and T-shirts. I was like, hey, you know, thanks for. I told everybody, hey, you come up and talk, I'll give you something, right? And so, you know, the class leaves, right? And then I open my phone, and you know, because of what I do, everything like, you know, all this stuff. So I'm very visible on social media, right? And a handful of the kids from the class. Also, I started getting all these followers on my Instagram, right? And I actually got a couple messages. And one of the messages, believe it or not, was from a kid that wasn't even in the class. Wait till you hear this. Like down the hall. I don't know if this I don't know if it was a student or I don't even know. I don't even know. A student messaged me on Instagram and just said, "Hey, I just want to tell you that." Hey, just so you know, I was not in that class or that presentation. You were giving that presentation talking about like your podcast and all that stuff. And she goes, and I just want to tell you, I heard it from the other room. And she goes, I just want to tell you how great it was, and you inspired me just from me listening from the other room. Wow. And I'm like, wow.
There you go.
I'm like, that's cool.
Very cool.
You know?
Very cool.
Like that's what it's all about, man.
It is. It is.
Like. People get caught up in so much other shit. Like, that's what's important.
That's right. That's right. You know, again, life learnings. You get caught up in working with, you know, well-known people that you think are cool and you think are heroes, but they're not. You find out later in life who the real heroes are. And, you know, that's what I'm hoping to be here. You know, these kids don't know any better. You know, to be honest with you, I look for some of the kids from the Dixon City Civic Center now, and you know, there's a lot of sad stories, and I'm hoping to prevent some of that, and I'm hoping to be a guy that no matter what I do can, you know, children feel like they can come to me and you know, process those feelings. It sounds corny, but it's sort of like the old Mr. Rogers philosophy. You know, it doesn't matter what your situation is. You know, kids need to know how to process their feelings, because those feelings can bottle up and really cause problems later in life and prevent them from doing a lot of things. And, you know, that's what we're trying to do at the theater, and what I'm trying to do with the help of Mike and Sherry, is really trying to make it a genuine community resource where people feel like they can come and be who they want to be and follow their dreams. And, you know, doesn't matter what's going on at home, doesn't matter what's going on at school. We'll help them, you know, process those feelings, understand their situations, and have a little bit of fun.
So what can how can people learn about the Ritz Theater? Like, what's coming up? Anything coming up in the next couple months?
So this weekend we've got the second weekend of Shrek. It's probably, at least for my tenure, it's the best cast that we've had. Really powerful show, fun for all ages. That's Friday 7 to 9, Saturday 2 to 4, and 7 to 9. So there's 3 showings this weekend. That's then we go into Easter, and you know, a big sweet spot for us are these sort of holiday brunches. Mike is amazing in the kitchen. Mike Melcher's amazing in the kitchen, and we roll out these like brunch buffets with the Easter Bunny. We did it for Christmas with Santa Claus and Charlie Brown Christmas. So kids, families are coming to have breakfast with the bunny, and we'll roll that out, and they get to spend some time with the Easter Bunny. Then after that is Mother's Day, and we've got a couple of things lined up for Mother's Day that are really cool as well.
Very exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting.
You're doing a hell of a thing, man.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I appreciate people like you. It's energizing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it's all about.
Well, like I said, there's a contingent of us that are trying to give back in our own ways. And while I might motivate you, this is a great platform, Bill. You're doing a really good thing. This is a great platform to get stories out there and have young kids hear it, and that's going to make a difference in their life. So well done.
Boom.
Boom.
That's it. All right. So how can our listeners connect with the Ritz Theater online?
Yeah. So our website, ritzpac.com. You'll see all our events on there. You can buy tickets on there, and, you know, find ways to support us. We're also on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're constantly posting things. We've got a lot of interesting things going on. We're transitioning the business, and, you know, really honing in, getting ready for camp. But yeah, we're creating those memories for our families.
Full steam ahead.
Full steam ahead.
All right. Jim Olecki on the Stacks podcast in the Blue Door Studio. Thanks for joining me.
Bill, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. We'll catch you next time on The Stacks.